you need?
Prava sent me. I'm looking for Vigo.
You and that nuisance of a child both. Girl's been nagging us about that demon woman all week. Vigo's gone, looking into her claims. He should be at the mining camp north of here. Whole escort of knights went missing there last week, along with the girl's mother and another woman. Watch yourself out there.
Hello everybody and welcome back. My name is Winbeck, and on today's episode of RPG Radio, we're playing some more Diablo 4 with the story heating up a little bit in the background while we talk about skills, using the barbarian as the basis for everything that we're going to do while playing Diablo 4. If you are watching this video, remember that the barbarian is the class that I'm going to be using throughout the story mode gameplay of the open beta, which is just the first act. But we'll have some videos for rogue and druid gameplay as well, because both of those classes were super fun and they felt just as visceral and in your face as the barbarian. Specifically the druid and the werebear earthbender type build that I was able to flesh out for that class was extremely fun. And while the barbarian is still my favorite among the three, I can definitely see myself playing a druid as soon as the game launches. It's going to be kind of hard to pick between the two, if I'm being honest, but hopefully the experience with the druid is a bit better when the game fully releases, because it did, at least for the werebear, feel a little bit lackluster.
Are you Vigo? I was sent...
Hey! I know what I saw. She had horns like a beast. Strode right past where you stand. To think my mother's trapped in there with her. You let my mother through, sir. Shouldn't you be responsible for her safety?
But we have soldiers stationed inside.
You should be worried about them, too. Maybe you can help me.
She did.
The horned woman is the demon Lilith.
No, that can't be. My mother taught me that name. You speak of the daughter of hatred.
Did Prava mention me? She wasn't angry, was she?
There's more than your job at stake here.
Come on. Let's get this over with.
As far as the story goes, we're chasing after Lilith in the background. Still, Vigo is taking us down into the mines that Lilith and Neyrel's mother adventured down to shortly before this is all happening. So that's going on in the background while we talk about skills, while we talk about abilities, all the cool stuff that all of these characters can do, broken down into pressable buttons that make a character fun. One of the coolest parts about Diablo 4 is that all of the classes are going to be very unique in how they play and how their passives work. And while I would really love to show you the passives of the barbarian and the druid in these videos that we're going to be doing, the quests to unlock their, at least part of their passives, was not available in the beta. It was locked behind parts of the game that aren't accessible, and it's really frustrating that that's how it works. But in order to unlock the passives fully for both of those classes, you have to do a quest. You have to complete a quest that requires one thing or the other. And then that, for the barbarian, allows you to pick a specific mastery of a weapon which we'll talk about in just a second. And for the druid, it allows you to pick a spirit boon that you will offer druidic offerings to specific spirits. It's hard to explain. I don't know exactly what it does, but again, it's got to be completed in its own quest. It requires materials that you'll pick up from killing monsters, and once you get the full access to the game, I'm sure that will be much more forthcoming in information. But the Barbarian is a lot more straightforward. The Barbarian is actually extremely interesting if we're talking in terms of overall power as the game scales, and the options that you are given when playing the Barbarian, at least when it comes to weapons. So the Barbarian has what's called the arsenal system, and that means that the Barbarian is going to be able to carry more weapons than any other class in the game. You get 4 weapon slots with the Barbarian, and each of them can be assigned to different skills, making those skills do different things, different types of damage, and all of that amounts to expertise in terms of passive usability. So what will ultimately end up happening with the Barbarian's passive is some of the weapons that you use gain stats like increased crit chance, increased crit damage. I think one of them is increased luck. Yeah, pole arms are increased lucky hit. Lucky hit is it's like an ability crit chance, but you know, that's its own thing. Basically, the point I'm trying to make is that the Barbarian has options for one-handed and two-handed weapons of almost all descriptions. So axes, swords, maces. You get different passive bonuses for the expertise that you gain with those specific weapons. And you gain that expertise by using them, by attacking and killing enemies. The more that you use them, the more experience that they gain. So, ultimately what you may end up doing is picking a full set of sword skills. If you want to be a very sword-wielding barbarian, you can set your arsenal system up to do two single-handed swords, a one two-handed sword, and I think you have to have a two-handed bludgeoning weapon. So when you're dual wielding, one-handed, you can use an axe, a mace, a sword, and then have whatever you want in the other slot as well. Your two-handed weapon has to be in the left slot, has to be a bludgeoning weapon, so like a mace or maybe an axe. It may just be mace. And then your right side two-handed weapon has to be a slashing weapon. So it's got to be either a sword or a polearm. But anyway, the point is you can use a two-handed sword plus 2 one-handed swords, and you can increase the expertise that you're using for swords if those swords are the passive, or if they're giving you the stat that you want for the build that you're going for. So if there are specific skills that are using your sword passives better than others, and those are the ones that you want to do, all you have to do is keep swords equipped and, you know, kill people with them, and you'll get that passive increase to the stats that you're provided. I think swords are going to, slashing weapons are going to be more effective with things like bleeding. I think they're like attack speed and crit focused, if I remember. So let's look at the weapons real quick. I'll put the axe up on the top left side of the screen for you. You can see right under rare two-handed axe, it says slashing, and that is going to dictate where it goes in the barbarian's inventory. So slashing two-handed goes on the right, and then bludgeoning two-handed goes on the left. Now you might be wondering why even have those do that? What's the point? That seems kind of arbitrary, but it's because of the way that the barbarian's skills work that the character needs different types of weapons to use different types of skills and to differentiate between them. Actually, if you are playing a barbarian, you can use one of basically every type well, one of most types of weapons. You can have a two-handed mace, you can have a two-handed polearm, you can be using a sword and an axe. So you can basically run the full gambit of weaponry and get all of those stats with your barbarian through the passive, through the mastery. And if you want to go even further than that, once the game fully releases, you have a mastery slot that the game lets you choose. So once you complete that quest, you get to pick the mastery slot. Maybe you want to do something like, you know, a one-handed mace or a two-handed sword, something that you're not using currently in your gear, but you know that you want to play for it towards the end game, or maybe you just picked it up and you're not sure about it, but you just want to go for it and see what happens. I mean, the opportunities are there, and the passive themselves are going to be very freedom providing when the game releases completely. But enough about passives. I put on the screen in the top left corner one of the active abilities for the barbarian. You'll notice that it says the word basic under the rank and the title of the ability. That is because all of the abilities in Diablo 4 have a category. They have a couple of different naming conventions and tags that define them in working a specific way for the class. Given whatever build that you're going for, they have some effect that the designers think is core to the gameplay loop of the class, or it is a basic ability that should be used freely and very often. There are other things that are class specific, such as weapon mastery abilities that the barbarian specifically has later on down the tree. And then there are things like ultimate abilities much further down the ability tree that all classes have, but affect whatever build you're playing incredibly differently, because they're all geared toward a specific character or a specific class and a specific build that you'd like to use within that class. So what it boils down to is that all of the tags within the abilities in Diablo 4 are going to work to be modified by each other, or gear that you choose, or any number of other different things going on in the game. Now, the next ability we're going to talk about is Upheaval, and the reason that we're talking about it specifically is because it has a very specific tag. This is going to be a tag that gets shared across every class, and it is the core tag. Core and basic are things that are going to go no matter what class you have, because the developers use basic abilities as almost a resource generating ability, and then your core abilities are abilities that can be very integral to your build. They can basically allow you to build an entire character completely around them, because gear will affect that ability potentially more often, or they have modifiers, or they act in such a way that they will push your character further into the game than, say, something like a full set of, if you had a full hotbar of basic skills, you would be doing theoretically worse than you would with maybe half basic skills and half core skills. Core skills are ultimately designed in a way to provide more damage or more of some kind of stat for your character to meet their specific gameplay fantasy. We'll say that. So things like Hammer of the Ancients, Upheaval, the core abilities of the Barbarian are big, thick attacks.
No. The escort. They're all dead. Over there.
A woman. Vigo. It was one of the women you sent. Only She wasn't human. She was a demon, like the statue. Claims she mothered sanctuary. It was a dead bloodbath.
The other woman, Venard. Where is she?
She begged for her life. Lily spared her. Let her deeper in. Give up, girl. She's lost. Vigo, you must listen. Steel did nothing. Spells, prayers, all useless. Go to Corval. Tell Pro. Raise the army. The father. Evil itself. Locks sanctuary. Do this for me.
He is dead.
I'm done for. Your mother told me this trinket would bring good fortune. To think I trusted her.
She bribed you with it, didn't she? You weren't supposed to let her through at all. But it's not too late. She can still be saved.
Not by me. Not anymore. Prava will know what to do.
You're leaving us? Abandoning her?
There's nothing left to abandon. She's good as dead. I'm sorry, kid.
He really just left us. It's up to us now.
In the simplest terms I can think of, core abilities are going to be core to the theme of your character. They're going to make you feel like a unstoppable berserker as the barbarian, or they're going to make you feel like the nimble assassin that is the rogue if you're playing with your melee in mind, or they're going to make you feel like you are the wielder of bows and arrows to the extreme.
Yes, I am Lilith, mother of sanctuary.
Daughter of hatred.
I have what you seek. You hunger for knowledge. You dragged your child all over sanctuary in pursuit of it.
No, I taught her how to survive.
Is that what you want to believe? Drop the act. You have questions. I have answers. I know the fabric of the cosmos.
Everything I've read has warned me against you.
You've read so much, yet know so little. Will you accept my offer?
I don't know. Will you let me try? I want to try.
Your mother is alive. She came this way with Lilith.
How can you be sure?
Sometimes I see visions of the past. I saw them.
What? How?
Lilith's petals. Her blood was fed to me once.
And then there are other abilities as well, but like I said, these are going to be more class-specific tags. These are going to be where the gear in the game really breaks down to affect specific things. So if you're looking at Warcry on the screen right now, you see the tags Brawling and Shout. Those are actually tags that are going to be split between a couple different tiers of skill in the Barbarian tree. Brawling is more the get in the middle of enemies and press the button to see what happens. So Warcry specifically is going to let out a cry in the middle of the screen from your Barbarian that affects both yourself and your allies. There is also Leap, Leap is another brawling skill, and what Leap does is leaps you directly onto an enemy or wherever your cursor is so that you can get directly into or out of where you need to be. The intention of the brawling tag, it looks like, is to have your barbarian in the middle of the fray dealing damage or getting away from damage, mitigating, whatever the case may be, but it's built in such a way that the barbarian is supposed to be right on top of all the bad guys. And after that, you'll start seeing things such as the core tag and the basic tag, the shout tag, the brawling tag. All of those different tags are going to be mixed and matched with other things like your ultimate skills or your weapon mastery skills. There are tons of different combinations throughout the skill tree for the barbarian and every other character to make these abilities work with and in tandem with other abilities in the trees. Not only that, but you'll have gear that affects the way that an ability works fundamentally. So if we're looking at the druid, for example, the druid has a werebear ability called Debilitating Roar that reduces damage from enemies hit by it. It's basically the entire screen. It's a big roar. It makes tanking with the werebear a lot easier. But if you are more interested in playing a werewolf, or you're going to be shifting in between werewolf and werebear to the point that maybe you want to have the roar on your werewolf as well, there is an inscription that you can get. There is gear that you can get that will let you use the deafening roar in werewolf form, as well as buff it in some other way. I can't remember what specifically now that I'm thinking about it was, but that's because I didn't play werewolf at all. I didn't play caster druid either. I just played full werebear, and that was the most rewarding experience for me. I'll give you guys the build that I ended up using at the end of the beta in a couple videos here. It's coming, I promise, but it was extremely fun. It was all about pulverizing and smashing in werebear form, just being huge and absolutely destroying rooms with the click of just one button. It was absolutely everything I imagined it would feel like to be a huge man bear punching bad guys in the face. So all that said, skills are really cool. They are being worked on in a really new to the franchise kind of way. So Diablo 4 is obviously taking inspiration from other games, but I think this is definitely a strong step in the right direction for making sure that abilities and gear work together as best as they can, rather than relying on gear solely for the end game content.
Yes,
Do you have faith in me?
I want to.
Good. For now, all you need know is that we are going to meet my son.
Rathma, the first necromancer.
He is that, and more. He is the key to my plans.
It sounds like they're searching for Lilith's son, Rathma. Together.
Mother, what are you thinking?
That's it for me, though, everybody. I hope that quick and dirty explanation of your abilities in Diablo 4 was sufficient. We'll be back next time to talk about even more, because there is so much story yet to uncover, even just in the beta, and there are so many systems left to talk about. Thank you so much for hanging out, everybody. I will see you all next time.